Hey,
How are you?
I'm good. I'm so glad we made this work out. Do you accept people coming in or do they just pop up?
Yeah, I think so. It should show on our Instagrams that we're live and they could join, but also um the video will save after and we could post it to our account so people could just view it whenever in case they're at work right now.
That is awesome. Awesome. How are you doing? Have we met in person?
Yeah, yes. So it's so funny. So we actually did our CSAT training together. We started like our mod 2 together. And I remember you because I don't know if it was your accent or if I was like, she's really smart. Like and so I was a little stalker and like stalked you on Instagram. And then at the CSAT symposium this year, I saw you with
Yeah.
Jake, and I was like, oh man, I'm like, dang, like we did our training together, and she's over there presenting.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm really, really excited, and I'm just so glad that it worked out today on this iconic day. So yeah, I'm really excited to just talk with you about the misconceptions and just like how wrong people are in terms of things.
Yeah, it's so funny. So I went to this symposium with a good friend of mine, and when you were on stage and you were ready to present, it was like your punchline, and you said, okay, if anybody's ready to challenge this, I'm ready. And my friend looked over to me and she was like, she sounds like you. And I'm like, oh, yes, we are ready to tell people that they're wrong.
Yeah, right, right. And also I think so my background is in psychology. And so in South Africa, and so I do get like challenged because like the psychology field
Mm.
is very different than the counseling field, especially when it comes to the whole codependency thing. That's where I get the most challenged. And then also the other thing I get a lot challenged. Where do I? Oh, in the presentation I spoke about like calming the defense. Like just like so. I have been I have been told that I'm a little bit soft, but with some of the addicts. But it's because like we don't want them to be defensive. We want to reassure them that they can be vulnerable so that they can be vulnerable with their wives. So I do get challenged in that way, but I love it because I'm like we've got science to back up, right? And so
Yeah.
we're moving and working with science, right? And so yeah, I like that. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the best part, I think, about CSAT and just our fields with infidelity, betrayal, addiction, is that there is so much research behind it. There's so much misconception in society, but
Yeah.
there's so much research. So when people come and see me, I'm like, well, let me tell you
Yeah.
the facts and let me tell you where the facts came from.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, I think that inherently, I think people know. I think people know. So I think like when we're coming with the facts, if they're not resonating with it, like if you've been in betrayal trauma, like you're going to resonate with the countercultural stuff. Like for example, um, the thing that like people can't wrap their heads around is when there has been. Are you waving at me?
No,
Oh,
okay, the waving at like
yeah.
people are joining.
Okay.
Okay. You said
So
countercultural.
yeah. So like for example, when a partner has just discovered, normally the response is just shock, like just absolute shock. But then this crazy thing happens, and then they're drawn to their spouse or their partner who acted out, who betrayed.
Mm-hmm.
And then that that there's neurological evidence saying that our brains are wired for connection. And so when something happens, like I'm just going to put a God spin into this, because the thing is that God didn't create us to endure betrayal. God created us for connection. And so our brains do not know what betrayal is. Our minds do, like our whole physiological, we know we're betrayed, but there's space in our brain for it.
Mm.
That's why there's all the crazy making responses, because it's like then we're angry, then we're sad, then we're happy, then we're attracted, then we hate them, because we're like, how do we take these two realities and make it one? Because essentially we want to find the connection again. We want to get back to how we would call equilibrium in the system. Like we want to go back to balance. But that idea of being betrayed and then staying, that's pathologized, right? That's like stay with an abuser. Like that thing, like, how could you? He cheated on you. And it's like, no. Like, yes and no.
Like, right? Yes, he did. But yeah, I think when I hear someone say, if my husband ever did that, I would leave. Yeah. It's like nails on a chalkboard to me. I'm like, no, don't say that. Because like, most likely you wouldn't leave. You may want to, like, immediately, maybe there's some space and time of separation. But I love the way that you put it, the God spin of that we are wired for connection, because that's science-based, it's faith-based. It is the way that we were made in creation. From a Christian standpoint, you know, I don't know where you land, but I'm Christian. Yeah. And a lot of couples that I work with are also Christian. And so you're kind of talking about the attachment ambivalence of like, I love you, I hate you, and the confusion. And then where betrayed spouses get so much shame is the hysterical bonding. And so right after a betrayal, when you feel kind of this magnetic pull to be connected.
Yes.
The shame of that hysterical bonding.
Right. In themselves too. In themselves. I find my partners, they like a few weeks out, it's like they have to make a little confession. Like,
yes,
you know, slept with my husband. I'm like, I know. It's okay. I get it. Like, I'm not judging this. I'm not. I get it. I get it. And so, yeah, so that, like, it's countercultural. There's no other way. Even the disclosure process, just like getting to disclosure and then telling a man or a partner that the only way to recover is to tell the whole truth. Like, no matter how much it hurts her, she's entitled to the truth. And they have to take that risk and then watch. Like, it's shocking, but it restores her reality. And then there's healing. And like nowhere else are you pushed into a position, or highly encouraged into a position where it's like, you've got to come to the party, you know, to this extent. And so even after, like, just the concept of healing after betrayal, like that's still a very, very foreign concept for a lot of people. Like, I don't think, if you're not in the field, I don't think you see it, right? What do you think? Do you think people think you can recover after betrayal?
I think that the way that you're asking the question is important. Is how do you think people believe that they can recover? So coming from a lot of my population, Christianity, because I do identify as a Christian therapist, is it's bypassed of you should, and it's more swept under the rug. It's not recovery. And so it's like they're like just forgive and forget. And that is not what recovery is. So I see.
Yeah.
And then I see the other part of burnout is they have seen therapists who aren't specialized in this area, who have dismissed and minimized their pain, or even kind of colluded with the addict.
Right.
And I've seen it where the burnout is they're just like, we can never recover from this.
Yeah.
And the societal beliefs of once a cheater, always a cheater, you know, don't put yourself in that situation, because then you get blamed. Like, do it once, shame on you, do it twice, shame on me belief. So I think there's a lot of that. I think there's so much against true, honest recovery. in this. And I think what you said about the disclosure, and that's so common for, they're like, oh, she doesn't want to know this. Like, if I tell her, she will surely leave. This is only going to hurt her. And so they don't tell her out of protection. Sometimes it's a real protection. They are trying to protect, their spouse. Absolutely. But the truth is that the harm's already done.
Right. Yeah, I love the way that you broke it up in like four, it's not just a straightforward answer. It's like, well, we've got to understand kind of like where that comes from. This idea of people don't recover, and or like you can't recover from betrayal, because I think the way to recover is so, sometimes, as you were talking, I was like, you know what, it is actually very specific. Like there's a very specific way to recover. It's like it has to be with integrity. It has to be with upright honesty. It has to be with a righteous heart. But I'm saying all these things and I'm thinking of all my messy clients. I'm a messy person. I'm not saying that I'm not messy. I'm very messy. And I mess up all the time. But it's like we're dealing with traumatized people. And so we're like, here's the pathway. Just do this. And they like ding 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 ding, like this defense and this trauma and this, and so like bringing them back. That's why it takes so long, because we do live in a fallen world. We do live in like a fallen creation, right? And so it's like, no, that's not right. A fallen world, not a fallen creation. The creation's fine. Yeah, so pulling them back into, this is the way to do it. And I will also say, I know I'm going off topic because we're talking about the misconception of betrayal trauma, but I will say that when our clients do this thing where they go all over, it's not deliberate, not always deliberate. They're struggling. They are really, really struggling. But that's where the part where it's our responsibility to believe in our clients, right? To say, hey, I know this is messy and you've got a lot going on, but I believe you can do it, and have them buy into it. And then, so if our clients come from previous therapy where the clinicians didn't know of betrayal trauma, they are going to feel and think that they're to blame. The recovery is not possible. It's better to leave the marriage. So it's a layer cake. So there's like a lot to consider in terms of that. Do you want to pull me back to topic? Because
it's a relevant topic, and I think it's helpful because we are talking about misconceptions, but I think that is kind of what puts more harm, like when our clients come to see us and they are going all over the place. But I think what you're saying is important, because it's okay. Like, it is okay for them to ping pong back. It's a part of the process. And if we were to separate all these processes of, okay, so we're treating betrayal trauma, we're treating addiction or integrity issues, and then we're dealing the coupleship in the relationship. And sometimes those conflict, sometimes they overlap, sometimes it's all in a big knot that we're trying to untangle, like a necklace that's, all tangled up. But with the paths that we have with CSAT, APSAT, and all the research that has been done, is if we keep bringing them back of, you can do this. This is possible. This is the roadmap that we have for you. And we know it's tried and true. Then I think sometimes we have to hold onto the hope until our clients can have hope for themselves.
Right.
And we have to kind of love them through that. And with the shame that betrayed spouses put on themselves.
Yeah.
And addicts have too. Like, addicts have shame. We can't leave them out, even though I know today's about the betrayed spouse.
Yeah.
is, it's hard. It's hard work. So I'm like, now do you want to bring me back?
You actually reminded me of something when you were talking about the shame that is put on, and like the Coldplay Kiss Cam.
Yes.
Right? And so I didn't have a single partner that week that was not affected by that. And so when today came, I was like, I am so thankful that we're starting to rewrite the narrative, because some of the things that I heard, because part of the shame is that what if that wife chooses to stay? Right? Just like all the other partners. Like my heart just sinks for her, because like most of my partners want to stay. I can feel it here in my heart. I'm just like, because my partners stay, they stay, and their partners do crazy unthinkable things, and so it's like, how, so the misconception is that because it's bad behavior they need to be punished, or they're not deserving of the acting our partner's not deserving of being stayed with. And so I feel for both. I'm not condoning the behavior. I'm not saying that was okay at all. I'm just saying it's way more complicated than the outside eye might think. The other thing, and I was infuriated when I saw this, was I saw a post on Facebook of the wife next to this kiss cam photo, and the tagline at the top was, "What an idiot. The wife is so beautiful." And I was like, the idea of what some women are deserving, like if you're ugly, like then you're deserving of it, like you're not allowed to be cheated on if you're beautiful. It's like, no, like no. And that I can get really passionate about, because the other thing that a lot of partners, like all of them, because sex and sexuality is so intimate, I don't know a single partner who doesn't feel I'm the fault or I'm not good enough. I'm not. Where with substance abuse, often the cognition around that is like, I'm not good enough for you to stop drinking. Like, you're not me over your drinking, but it's not as identity affecting. It's not, I'm not good enough for you.
What does she have that I don't?
Yes. Yes. And it's like, you can't answer those questions. Like, because there's no truth, there's no, like, the question really asks something else, right? It's actually that question of like, don't you love me, and why couldn't you not do that? Or it's really making a statement of, I don't feel worthy, right?
Yeah.
Where am I going with that?
Well, I think the Kiss Cam for the Coldplay concert, I think it started this, or maybe not started this, but it definitely put a flame, from what I understand, into Coach Andrea really pushing forward on this awareness day. And I think it was so important. I was actually messaging her when she was doing videos like the following days after the Kiss Cam. Yeah. Because I was on vacation and I couldn't post about it, and I really wanted to, because of all the jokes that were being made and the memes that were being made from the Kiss Cam. Yeah. And it's like, if you guys only knew, it did, like in my sessions too, for betrayed spouses, it was #1 topic. It was triggering for a lot of people. Yeah. But also it, like, all these jokes are being made, and I can't imagine for that betrayed spouse to log into her Facebook in the morning, not only to see evidence of her husband being unfaithful, but also the mockery that came from it. And it's the worst day of her life. Like, she doesn't know up from down. She doesn't know what's true, what's untrue, and all of the commentary, and trying to keep some type of stability, with children, with, I have no idea about her personal life, with work, with her husband, whatever it may be. And then having this so publicly done is, I mean, it would destroy somebody's mental state completely. So I think that the awareness of what it does to somebody's life and how,
Right.
you know, we don't know if we're going to stay or go. And I like that you mentioned we're not condoning the behavior.
Right.
Like, you know, I think that's really, really important, because if a betrayed spouse were to come to me and they were telling me that they were being abused emotionally, physically, like, we'd be having a whole different conversation, not on reconciliation. We'd be working on safety. And so I think that's important to just side note. What we're talking about are two people who are willing to do the work to change.
Yeah. Yeah.
And is that, you know, the belief of the misconception that that can't happen. People can't recover from this. But if there's two willing people that are wanting to do the very, very hard work of reconciliation, it is possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you watched the movie Accidentally Brave?
I did. I did.
I thought it was in terms, I mean, not the story, but the way that it was portrayed. I'm like, I'm not saying look, that was a great story, but like how, so just for anybody watching this, it's a documentary. It's not a doc, how would you say it? It's like a
It's a one person play,
yeah,
the theatrical play
yeah,
on her betrayal experience.
yeah. And I mean, I don't want to spoil the story, but her discovery was not nice, right? Like it was not like her, not just how she discovered, but like the discovery of what was discovered. And
Yeah.
just I thought she did such a good job of portraying going from we're getting a divorce, I'm done with you, to going to the recovery, going to I'm assuming that she said the Meadows, I think, well, she said Arizona, so I'm assuming the Meadows. And so and just being like, okay, people do recover, and then hearing his trauma and being like, oh wait, addiction is something different. Like this is might not be because he is just this awful sociopath. That's one of the most common questions I get in the first early stages from my betrayed partners is he a sociopath? What if he passes the polygraph and he lied because he's a sociopath? Common question, but all of that to say, when the partner starts to warm up and discover, okay, like there's more to this. This is going to look different going forward, but this doesn't mean I lose my connection. This doesn't mean I have to lose my family. This doesn't mean, unfortunately, that is the case. That sometimes happens, like not all, it doesn't always work out. And I think sometimes, I actually have a question for you in terms of the Christian circles, but like sometimes when divorce happens, that's when I find it feels like the partner doesn't win like either way. She stays and there's judgment, and she has to stay in a certain way because she's got to be forgiving and she's got to be kind, and she's got to push it aside. She's not allowed to be loud. She can't be triggered, because it's too reactive, it's too much. Or if she gets divorced, then there's like a whole lot of rules for her too. Like she can't complain about the schedule, and so either way she never wins. It's never like or or it swings the other way where it becomes husband bashing or ex-husband bashing. That's not helpful either, because what if the wife doesn't want to get a divorce? What if she does, and she has to, for some reason she finds she can't handle it. That doesn't mean she wants to bash him or say bad things. So and in that, I know that there's a lot, I see that all the time, where there's a lot of shame for her not hating him enough, or not loving him enough, or it's like all these rules. I wanted to ask you, I think I might have answered the question, but in the Christian circles, divorce, I find sometimes it's like, oh, that's fine because there's this one exception, and that's like if there's been betrayal. But even that, like, how do you think the church is handling like divorce post betrayal?
And so I have been very fortunate enough, the church that I'm a part of, has really embraced mental health.
Oh, wow.
And so I've been very fortunate in it is considered a mega church, and so widespread. A lot of people that I work with attend that church, and so they have been extremely supportive in even post divorce. I think where I have seen shame or stigma is more in like the Catholic Church for sure. And I don't want to bash anyone's belief system, but it's just
Right.
from my clinical experience what I have seen. The Catholic Church, you know, they are not pro divorce. And it's really interesting to me because, you know, yeah, God doesn't love divorce, but God also doesn't love infidelity.
Right.
And so I'm like really confused
Yeah.
when I hear that sometimes, but
Yeah.
that's off the topic. So I've had a pleasant experience with supporting divorced people. I think, of course, the church is wanting reconciliation if possible. Like, I
Right.
think that's the huge thing is like, if possible, is meaning no abuse going on and both people are willing to do the work to.
Yeah. Yeah.
You said it earlier, you said it beautifully. It wasn't like a soul change. What was it? You labeled like the work to be done is something to do with a soul change or like an integrity. It's more than behavioral
Right.
for a betraying spouse. Do you remember what you said?
I think I remember talking about just like integrity, right? Like a righteous heart change. I always talk about transformation in terms of,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, and so something
yeah,
along those lines. I think like if that is possible and if people
yeah.
are willing, then I've seen a lot of support. How about you? What has been your experience?
Okay. Okay. Do we have time? I think so. The church that I'm in right now, they've done an incredible job in being completely open to being educated in terms of what betrayal trauma is and how to deal with it. I think the immediate response is like, let's protect the betrayed spouse, and then like just kind of this hand slapping thing of like, don't do that, but because they're so protective over their little flock. But overall, I think like that makes a lot of sense, and I kind of like, I'm grateful for that. But then just the openness, how do we save this in a way that it won't happen again? Like, how do we invest time, money, spirituality, prayer into this marriage that is part of our congregation as an integral part of our congregation? How do we go out and fetch the sheep? Like, how do we bring them back? Which is just what it was the first time I've had this. Like, I'm new to this church and I've helped them through some stuff, and it's been wonderful. But in the past, that has not been the case. That has not been the case at all. My dad was a pastor. My grandfather was a pastor. I'm born out of wedlock. I was born in the 90s. Anyway, so I was born in 91. And so back then, there was a lot of shame put on, I think, on my stepmom for staying with my dad. For my dad was the one that betrayed my mom. I mean, betrayed my stepmom with my mom. And so there was a lot of like, hush, hush, don't talk about it. Like, you need to forgive him. I'm just gonna say it. You need to give him more sex. So I mean, that has been what I came from. Like, that's what I grew up seeing and knowing. But I feel like it's changing slowly but surely. Like if I think about the one characteristic, the heart change that I'm seeing in churches, is the willingness to learn. I think that's really big. And I think also like conferences like SILS, the sexual integrity. Are you familiar with SILS?
Yes.
So it's the Sexual Integrity Leadership Summit, and they're doing a really good job. I think that they're reaching congregations, and I think they're like mostly pastoral too. They're like, right? So that's the mission they're driving. And then also, I know at Daring Ventures, we've started an initiative to help pastors and people in ministry that struggle with this thing, right? Because that's tough, because that's another misconception, not for the betrayed spouse, but for the betraying spouse, is that if you're in ministry, like, you have to have it all together. Trauma is not allowed to affect you, or it's got to affect you differently. I haven't heard this idea of like praying it away recently. I feel like just maybe where are you? I'm in Houston. I'm in the Bible Belt. Like, well, you're in Tennessee, right?
No, I'm in Pensacola, Florida.
Whoops.
So it's considered the Bible Belt as well. We're really close to Alabama.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, in my city, like, I find like I know a lot of pastors in the city, and I think they're like with it. I think mental health is part of the church now. Like, I think they're getting there. I can't say the same for the smaller towns. I can't say the same for churches on the outskirts. I don't know about the church body as a whole, right? But I do think it's changing. So that's like a mixed combination of what I've heard, and, not just what I've heard, but what I've seen and witnessed and experienced. So, yeah. And I will say this in terms of the congregation. I think the perception of betrayal, I think leadership in churches recognize, sometimes they abuse it, but recognize the power they have. But what I would like to see more of is like pastors, like, speaking about it and out, not just when crisis happens. Like, be like, this is something we need to talk about. This is something. I think it was Pure Desires. The original guy who started Pure Desires, was he a lead pastor of a big church?
I don't know. I know what Pure Desires is, but I don't know how he started it.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm not quite sure if it is Pure Desires, but I do know that there was a mega church, a lead pastor who had struggled with a porn addiction, severe porn addiction, and went to SAA, which is Sex Addiction Anonymous, for about a year and something, and became sober. And then his sponsor was like, okay, when are you going to tell your congregation? And he was like, it doesn't belong in the church. Like, it just doesn't belong in the church, because he was finding healing outside of the church. And then he had a sermon and he confessed this, and it just exploded. And then all these men started coming to him being like, we have a problem, we have a problem, we have a problem. And then it became, I think that's how Pure Desires, I might be wrong, don't fact check me on that, but I think it was. And I think that's what I want to see, is like, I would love to see more honest conversation in churches about, this is not to pathologize. This is not to condone the behavior. This is not to shame. This is to say, this is a very real thing, and it happens way more than we realize. And you don't have to do this alone. And so when I gave some advice to my current church dealing with something, I was like, you've got to surround her with so much love. Like, treat it like she's got a physical illness, or a death in the family. Take her meals, pick up her kids from school, whatever she needs. I mean, her whole life is in shock. And that's what they did. And so, anyways, I'm rambling. Are you following?
I'm following.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing your personal story, your parents' story. It's amazing testimony, and I think it is so wonderful that you are in this place now.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's and
Yeah.
Really changing the narrative. Like you said, like, my heart hurts for your stepmom, the messages that she was sent within the church because of that. And I'm assuming, was that in South Africa?
Yes. Yeah.
And then that's where you're seeing a lot of codependency still being an issue.
I see the talk of codependency.
Yes.
I see that in a lot of psychology talk, because yeah, so I see that in South Africa, but I also see that just in the mainstream. Like, nowhere else do they challenge the perception of codependency, right? Because especially in America, the culture here strives to be individualistic. Like I need to be boundaried. I need to be my strong self, and like that whole self-empowerment thing. And I don't need your toxicness, and like, yes, there's truth to that, but at the same time, that's not how attachment works, right? That's not how we work in relationship. So I see that sometimes even in our circles, like, just like you need to recover and your partner needs to recover separately. Like, it's like, okay, maybe, but maybe really not. Maybe really not.
Yeah.
That's not how we're going to find healing. Like, so yeah, do you not see that? Do you not see the idea of codependence?
I do see, I mean, it's brought up a lot, especially with any type of AA, NA, SA. That's where, codependent has been really strong. The term of the spouse of an addict been labeled as codependent throughout the years. I think Robert Weiss has done a great job with prodependence and getting that message out of, this is healthy attachment that we're seeing. And of course she's responding in this way. And there's trauma to that. And so I think as far as healing of he needs to heal, she needs to heal, and the inability to heal together, I think what you said of yes, true, and like the statement of both, and I think I say that a million times a day. I'm like, yes, and so we're constantly holding two truths of like, it's not black and white. None of this is black and white. Like, there's 0%. It's all dependent on someone's situation. And I also think that can be true. And we could still hold this other piece too, is like, yes, he or she does need to do some individual work in recovery, and we could still work on the relationship together simultaneously. And if that is the goal, if the goal is some marriage work, then of course we're gonna have to do this together. I'm like, it just doesn't make sense to not do it together. But I can see that in other spaces it's protective of, like, I see it a lot if there's an abuse situation happening where it's like, okay, the individual work is needed before the coupleship. And I can see that. I think it does take a judgment call. I think it, more than anything, it takes education of who's making these judgment calls and how are we evaluating the situation. And I think that's where what you were saying earlier with churches educating of like, okay, let's not only acknowledge the problem, but what can we do with it? And like, who do we turn to for the right resourcing and help with this? And most people go to their church for help. And so I think it is important for the leadership in churches to know where to turn to for the proper help of, okay, let's evaluate the situation. I don't know. I'm kind of getting off topic.
Right. No. I am following you. There was something I wanted to say about not individuation, but oh my goodness. Almost 5:00. I was tracking you. And it was like,
so we were talking about codependency, individual help, gray areas instead of black and white.
Yeah, I was just thinking in terms of like, just if I'm doing just the misconception in our field, why people try to separate couples is because that it's so dysregulating and it's so like pressurous that they're like, no, you like, it's dangerous, you got to get away from it, right? Like, you've got to get away from that pressure and the tension. But sometimes that's kind of what we need to see. Do you see couples
Sometimes. I do more individual work. I've done some couples work, but it's not my bread and butter.
So what I usually do is I start with couples, see what happens in the dynamic, and then I know, okay, this is why you're responding that way, because I can actually see what is happening in you when you see that in him, what is happening in him when he sees that in her. So when I have to confess, when I do individual work and I'm trying to pinpoint what is the influence of the response, I'm like, it doesn't make sense. So if I see the dynamic and it's there's too much tension, too much pressure, then I separate and do individual work, because I can see why they're getting triggered. But if I don't have that, then I'm kind of like, okay, what am I doing here? Like, because I really want to, because I don't want, like, I don't want to just label the behavior and say, okay, well, these are all the bad things you're doing, go change it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like you're doing these things because all behavior makes sense in a context, right? And so I need the context. But I think that's why, I mean, we work with a very difficult population with a lot of emotion and a lot of reactivity. And so, I mean, I understand why we're like, no, you recover and you recover, and then when you're both recovered, we'll rejoin. So it's like I have empathy for that, and I've done it myself, but it's remembering that at the end of the day, that couple, they've chosen each other. Like Sam Tatkin talks about, you're in each other's care. And so who are we to separate them? It just kind of agitates the system because their natural wiring is that magnetic effect, right? Mm-hmm. You can't separate them. If the wife's angry, she wants her husband to know she is mad at him, right? It's like, why are you taking it? He needs to know it. He needs to know it. I'm not saying bash him over the head, but he's got to deal with it. He's got to learn to deal with it, and she's got to understand he's pulling away, and that makes her more angry. And so there's a lot more to learn in that tension, and it feels more natural. That's why my next thing that I'm gonna like really really hone in and talk about is boundaries, because there's so much good in boundaries, but once again our brains don't know what they are. Like, we weren't designed to put fences around to protect our hearts from people we love. Like, we were not created like that. And so I think a lot of partners are shamed when they don't get boundaries right. When they're like, no, I can't do this. Like, I really wanted him to sleep in my bed. I really wanted him to hold me. And so then she feels shame about the boundary she broke, and then letting him break her boundary. And it's like, stop that too. Have boundaries, understand them, work towards them, but don't shame when it's hard, when those are really hard to enforce, because there's a reason why they're hard, because you didn't marry someone thinking I have to put down boundaries one day. It's not how we operate. So I think there's a lot of shaming around that too.
Yeah, being able to uphold boundaries or to not. And so I think what you were mentioning before of you working with couples to see the tension and you being able to evaluate the situation better and more effectively than you would individually if like you were just to see one person. And I think that's a good point. I wanted to share that. So the way that I've worked, although I do work mostly with individuals, is I do work closely with like the couples therapist and the other person's individual therapist to get like a full 360 view of everything.
Right.
And so it's because I think couples therapy, I think that they're number one, they're angels. Like couples therapy are, I mean, I'm like, you have a gift. And I also think that it is the best way to see what each person needs to work on individually.
Right.
And each person has, you know, they're both bringing something to the table. They both have their own personal traumas before the relationship. Then they have their relational traumas that were built inside the relationship. And to work on outside of the couple's work, which is, you know, the relationship itself. So I definitely see where you're like, when I see a couple, I can guide them into what is needing to be done individually. I'm like, yes, that makes sense. So I'm always, you know, I have a close knit of, well, it's actually two therapists that I work closely with, and we're constantly consulting on all of our couples. And I think that gives the best care, because it would be extremely hard if I was a solo person without consulting with other therapists that are working with that coupleship of only getting one side of the story and not understanding why things are happening. It leads us blind in a lot of ways.
Right.
And then the shame that betrayed spouses feel for wanting to connect. That's kind of what you led into, is the boundaries, and how when a betrayed spouse breaks their own boundary, they feel shame.
Yeah.
I personally, so some of the internal dialogue that I've heard some of my betrayed spouses say is over and over again, I'm weak. Like, I'm so weak that I let him either get away with this, or I let him, I didn't stick to my own boundary. And then I've seen it on the other side with the addict, where they feel confused. They're just like, well, she said that this is a boundary, but then she asked me to sleep in the same bed last night. Yeah. And so it's being able to honor like both of like, it makes complete sense why you would want him in bed. And then also for him to help him make sense of her experience.
Yeah.
Because it is so complex and convoluted of this dynamic. It's the attachment ambivalence.
Right. And I think in summary, like it all comes down to, like, it makes a lot of what you're talking about on the outside. It makes a lot of sense for people who have not been in this to have a different perception of betrayal until you're in it, right? Mm-hmm. Been and walked that road. I think if I had like one message, like for people on the outside, it would be, can you just have grace? Like, can you radically observe your friend, or, you know, your sister or mother or whoever it is who has just experienced betrayal? Can you observe them without judgment and just radical acceptance? Just like, you don't have to agree with their behavior. You don't have to understand it either, but can you just observe it and just accept that it's not like there's no prescribed behavior that's going to work, right? And so I understand why people think the way they do. And also, I will say this to even myself as a betrayal trauma specialist and a CSAT. In the beginning, I had to be careful of the things that I culturally learned about betrayal, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I sometimes overestimated some of my clients' strengths. Like, for example, like, just because I just saw them, they've just discovered, and then 3 months later, they're a little bit more stable, just the perception, okay, they're fine now. And then they have a wobble, and I'm like, I thought you were fine. So I'm not a betrayed spouse. And so I've had to work on my own things. So all of this to say, in terms of just the misconceptions, I get it, because even when I've tried to explain things to my betrayed spouses, I sound crazy sometimes. My favorite crazy thing is trying to explain addiction. Like, I actually made a video about this, but just like, it's not about you, but it is about you. Like, they're a sex addict, yeah, but who's the, you know, so it's like, how do you even explain that without invalidating the betrayed spouse? Because it's like, how dare you say that it's not about me? Because it is about her. It's all about her. Like, it's an intimate it's an integrity issue. It's an intimacy disorder, right? And so just that perception of it's an intimacy disorder. So I know I'm rambling again, but what I'm trying to say is that I'm aware that some things that we try to explain doesn't make sense because we don't hear it in the mainstream, right? But I'm just thankful for days like today where we can be like, actually, this is really the story. This is really the science. This is really even the biblical story. Like, recovery is biblical. Sex is biblical. All these things we can find is sacred. And I mean, yeah. Yeah. And I think this is your area of expertise, definitely, where you can definitely speak more into the Christian and the biblical perspective of it. But it is biblical. Recovery is biblical. Redemption is biblical. And yeah.
Yeah, I think, you know, all of it is, and it's a great anchor to all of this to bring us back, and it's relatable in all ways. And I think that it is hard not to dismiss or invalidate the spouse when explaining addiction, and when trying to, we don't want them to feel like that it's their fault and that's like the intention behind it. And then at the same time, it feels very personal. And so it's like, well, wait a minute, like if it has nothing to do with me, then why?
Yeah.
And so what would we call it? It's cognitive dissonance, right? That's what we would call that confliction of the correlation doesn't mean causation.
Yeah.
And so it's with all of it, I think the Kiss Cam, and then today being the first annual Intimate Partner Betrayal Awareness Day, is for us to step back and just think maybe we don't know the full story and maybe we don't know all of it. And even us as professionals that try so hard to understand this full scope idea, is everyone's story is a little bit different, and for us to step into it very gently. And what you said is observe, is like, let me see what's going on before pushing judgment or putting my own expectations or cultural beliefs onto.
Right. Yeah, and I think the narrative's gonna start changing slowly but surely, and we're not gonna reach everybody. We're just not. But at least I will say this: when I started at Daring Ventures in 2022, and I remember with my first partner in the beginning of 2022. I remember there were maybe 5 groups that were reputable. And now when I Google betrayal trauma recovery groups, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. So I do feel more hopeful, and I'm just thankful for bigger organizations that are really getting through. Like AFSATS is a big deal, CSAT. And so I think it's slowly turning. I do feel like the tide is slowly turning, slowly but surely, right?
Yeah. And I think it's big things like today that putting all the awareness on makes someone second guess when they, are faced with a loved one who has experienced betrayal or addiction.
Yeah. Was there anything else? I'm like crashing you.
No, I think I'm so happy that we were able to make this work today.
Me.
And happy to, talk to you one-on-one, face-to-face.
Yes.
And I'm so excited for all the work that you're doing and all the stuff that you're putting out there on social media. I think it makes a huge difference, and you have a great sense of humor. When I watch your reels, I'm like, she's so funny.
Well, thank you. I kind of feel like I'm a little bit arrogant sometimes. I'm like, you guys don't know what you're talking. I'm just kidding. And I was I'm really glad too. And because I mean, we were talking 2 weeks out, so I'm glad that you're like, are you free today? So that was really good. And I'm just thankful, and thank you so much. Like, I'm not actually big on Instagram, because I'm inspired for about 2 weeks and then I lose it. And then, so watching your platform grow, and just everything about your page is so wonderful. And I know that we're going to cross paths again. And I know that maybe next year sells, or I think next year's ITAP symposium is online. And so I think it's every second year where it's in person. But I know we'll cross paths again. And you're pretty familiar with Daring Ventures, right?
Oh yeah. Okay. Listen, who is going to see that's not familiar with Daring Ventures? But yes.
Good. Well, thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm really excited to see what happens, not only with you or me, but rather just the field, just the fact that this is a thing.
Well, thank you so much, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Thank you. Bye.